Hello and welcome back to Mariners Rundown. My name is Jake, also known as Raise the Trident. Thank you for stopping by for episode 3 of the Mariners Rundown, where today we're going to be finishing out my three-part season preview series. We went over the offense in episode 1, we went over the pitching staff in episode 2, and now it is time to go over the division rivals. So the division in general, we're going to be breaking down a little bit the other teams that we're going to be facing in the AL West. And then we're going to go over a couple keys to success this year for us to be hopefully playing October baseball, because that's what I think we would all like to see, right? So with that said, before we get into it, if you are on the audio only platforms of Apple and Spotify, thanks for stopping by. You can follow the show and leave a rating. That would help me out a lot. If you're on YouTube and watching my ugly mug on here, along with listening, I appreciate you as well. You can subscribe to the channel. It's free. It helps me out a lot. You can like the video and you can become a member if you would like for exclusive content. That would be much appreciated as well. However, I am not going to keep you any longer on all of that stuff, that self-advertisement, self-promotion, and we're going to get into it. So, like I said, the first thing we're going to be talking about is our division rivals. So I'm going to go over the teams in the AL West. We're going to start at the very, what I perceive is going to be the bottom of the AL West, and we're going to work our way up. And once we get to the top three, which includes the Mariners, I'm not going to do a Mariners summary, obviously, because that's what we've been talking about this whole time. At that point, I'm not putting anyone in a place as far as will they finish first, second, or third, because I think it's going to be a three-team race again. But I think I'm pretty confident as far as the 4 and 5. So we're going to get into it. Starting at the 5, to me, I believe the clear favorites to end the year in last place of the AL West is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Now, a lot of this has to do with the Athletics having actually a pretty solid roster. I mean, they're not, going to be competing for the crown, the AL West crown or anything, but they have some solid pieces, and I think they have more solid pieces than the Angels do. Now, talking about the Angels, as far as the solid pieces they do have, I would label reliever Ben Joyce as one of those guys. He has a electric fastballs. He's, one of those 100-mile-an-hour guys. So he's always going to be tough. Second baseman Luis Rengifo, he always seems to just kill the Mariners, so that's part of the reason I'm listing him here. He's a solid player. Outfielder Taylor Ward, he can be one of the better outfielders in the AL, potentially. And then catcher Logan O'Hoppe is a solid guy as well, solid catcher. So they have some good players. Now, the problem though is that a lot of their roster just feels kind of like question marks. Now, like Mike Trout, for instance, will he stay healthy? We don't know. We don't know if he's going to stay healthy. We don't know how many games he's going to play this year. It's pretty clear that when he is playing, he can still be like a super great player. And I believe they're moving him over to right field this year. I don't remember if it's left or right field, but I want to say it's right field. He's not playing center field anymore. And I think part of that is just so that's a little bit less range on his legs to make defensive plays, and hopefully keep him healthy for longer. And if they do, then, hey, he's still a weapon. Absolutely. Anthony Rendon, we don't know if he's ever going to play baseball again. So there's that. And then it just kind of feels like after that, like the rest of the club is kind of mediocre. Their rotation, their ace is Yusei Kikuchi, who had a phenomenal stint last year in the second half with the Astros after they got him at the trade deadline. But he shouldn't be an ace of the staff. He's not Kikuchi is just not an ace right now, and he is their ace at this point. Tyler Anderson's a solid starter, but he's not who he used to be. And then after that, like, I don't really even know who else is in their rotation. I know Reed Detmers, but they sent him down last year, which is really weird, even though he was solid. So I don't know what's going on with this organization. In the bullpen, outside of Ben Joyce and a old Kenley Jansen, not great either. somehow the Angels have managed to kind of be a bit more of a dysfunctional organization than the Mariners or Athletics in recent years, which is just kind of crazy. But with that said, that's a part of the reason I don't foresee a very positive 2025 for them. So I don't think there's a whole lot of players in that or on that team to put enough confidence into to carry this team to anything more than probably fifth place in the division. Next, who I think is going to end up fourth in the division is the Athletics. I don't think they're going to be competing for the AL West crown. However, they are no longer pushovers or free wins in the division anymore, which is awesome to see. Now, they should still be in Oakland. They should still be the Oakland Athletics. So I'm going to put that out there. John Fisher, you suck. You're a bitch. Okay. But talking about the players who you cannot blame for the issues of their ownership, their offense is legitimately good. They have Brent Rooker. They have Lawrence Butler, who could be one of the better 3-4 punches in a lineup in the game right now. Both, Lawrence Butler seems like he could end up being an MVP candidate at some point in his career, maybe even this year, for all we know. Brent Rooker, solid hitter. I wish he was a Mariner so bad. I love Brent Rooker a lot. It's too bad that he signed an extension. I'm glad that he got his money, but I'm frustrated he signed an extension, so he can't be coming here anytime soon. Behind the dish, Shea Langoliers is a really solid catcher with some pop. He's kind of one of those underrated catchers in the game, I feel like. So I'm a big Shea Langoliers fan. There's some other young guys who can improve and make the Athletics a really dangerous wild card team, such as Zach Geloff, JJ Bleday. They're both solid players. It also can't be understated how their transition to a AAA ballpark can be very favorable to the offense. It probably will be favorable to their offense. It'll be favorable to the visiting offenses too. So like there is a trade-off there. However, I just think that means that guys like Lawrence Butler and Brent Rooker and, Langoliers and whatnot, they're going to have even better seasons than they've had in years past. So really excited to see what they do this year. With that said, going to their pitching, the rotation of bullpen's okay. It's not bad. They added starter Luis Severino. They added reliever Jose Leclerc, or Leclerc. I think it's Leclerc. I'm going based off the Formula One, Charles Leclerc. So for the pronunciation. So sorry if it's Leclerc or something. And in their bullpen, they still have Mason Miller, who is going to be, throwing 103 mile an hour fastballs at the end of games to close things out, which is always going to be tough. I know, Julio hit a home run off of him last year, which was awesome, but, he's still going to be a very dangerous when, if you enter the ninth inning in a deficit against the Athletics, like it's going to be very tough to come back from that. So they have a lot of good pieces for sure, especially on the offensive side. Their pitching is still kind of very iffy still. And especially with the AAA ballpark, it might be tough for their pitching to really post well. But they have legitimately good pieces, and I don't expect them to be in the division race, but they're going to be very tough opponents. So I'm excited to see what the Athletics end up pulling off this year. Okay, now we're getting into the top three. Obviously, I'm not going to do a Seattle Mariners summary because that's who we've been talking about the first two episodes, basically. So we're going to go with the two other teams that we are definitely probably going to be fighting for the AL West crown with. We'll start with the Texas Rangers. They're just full of question marks. And a lot of that has to do with injuries. I mean, if we want to start, their rotation is the biggest question mark. Eovaldi is going to be their ace, and he's a good pitcher. But after that, it's like everyone is kind of, what will they be this year? Will Jacob deGrom actually make a considerable amount of starts? Because if Jacob deGrom stays healthy, then yikes, that's going to be really tough for the Mariners and the other teams in the division. John Gray is solid. However, he's injured with a fractured right wrist due to being hit by a comebacker this spring. So he's going to be starting the year on the IL. But he's still a solid pitcher. And then they have two really young studs in Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, both very young pitchers. A lot of promise there, but it's like, with them being young, how successful will they be? We don't know. So their rotation is a big question mark. Will they get Jacob deGrom? Will Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter be solid? Who knows? Their bullpen is looking pretty damn weak. A lot of that has to do with, I mean, they lost Kirby Yates, they lost David Robertson, and at this point, like Josh Spores, who's been with them for a while, is going to be on the IL. He's currently on the 60-day IL due to a shoulder surgery, so he might be out for a little while. And honestly, I was looking at their bullpen. I'm like, I don't know who any of these dudes are. I know barely who any of these dudes are. And so their bullpen, I think, is going to be their biggest weakness this year. And if their rotation is going to be a big question mark with injuries, and if it ends up not going their way and they have to rely on that bullpen, it's going to be potentially a really rough year for them. However, on the offensive side, I think their biggest plus is their offense. Very high ceiling, like we saw in 2023. It could be also a low floor, like we saw in 2024. However, I really like their additions of Jake Berger and Jock Peterson. Very solid pieces there. Jock Peterson last year was really good for the D-backs, and Jake Berger, he just has, some good pop in his bat. He could be a solid player for them. And if guys like, Marcus Semien, if he goes back to his 2023 self, he was, felt like he's unconscious at the plate. Like, who knows what that's going to look like? What if Corey Seager stays healthy for a long period of time? He is always dangerous. So that's like a big yikes if he stays healthy. And Wyatt Langford, man, he is a stud, and he's also a year older and more experienced. He can be a game changer. I think the Rangers are going to be a really tough opponent in the AL West, especially if the injury luck goes their way, especially in that rotation. They're going to be a dangerous team for the ALS crown, that's for sure. So I'm not going to put them down at all. And then lastly, we got to talk about the Houston Astros, the reigning AL West champs. They are weaker than they've been in a while. They've lost star players such as Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker this year. And their rotation is still working back to being healthy. So we'll see how that goes. Last year, they got totally screwed on their rotation when it came to injuries. So they are going to be working some guys back. Jose Altuve is going to be learning a new position. He's not going to be second base anymore. He's going to be left field, which could go fine, or it could be a huge detriment, and we don't know which one it's going to be. Especially in left field it's not Minute Maid anymore. It's Delkai Park, I think. That left field is so wonky with the Crawford boxes that it could be difficult for him. He has less ground to cover than in right field, but he has this large jutting out wall, and then it goes back to the bullpen. It's just weird dimensions that he's gonna have to worry about. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see how that goes. Now, as far as their additions this year, they did add Christian Walker and Isaac Paredes. Walker is a Gold Glove level first baseman. He's been a consistent hitter for his whole career. Paredes is a solid hitter, and he is a very he only pulls the ball. Like, he's a right-handed pull hitter to the max. Literally, I don't think he's ever hit an opposite field home run at all. If you look at a spray chart, it's like literally just to the left side practically. Both Walker and Paredes are definitely going to benefit from those Crawford boxes in left field. So I think they're both going to be very dangerous when they are playing in Delkai Park. But with that said, Walker's a little bit on the older side of things. There's been some signs that he's not handling the fastball as well. So who really knows about him? I think Paredes is going to be solid regardless, especially with those Crawford boxes. I think he might put up some video game numbers with those. So we'll see. And then going into the rotation and the pitching staff, their rotation is still going to be headed by Framber Valdez. Hunter Brown had a really solid year last season. So there's those guys. And like I said, they're going to be getting some guys back from injury. So their rotation could be solid. We don't really know yet. It's a little bit of a question mark. Their bullpen is very thin, it feels like. We still have at the back end Josh Hader and Brian Abreu at the back end, and they're both, filthy. And they're both really tough relievers. But after that, there's not really anyone who stands out. So that's kind of hard. Their bullpen is not as good as it used to be. They lost Ryan Presley, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that fares for them. I still think, regardless of the Astros are going to be in the thick of it, and they absolutely should be considered the team to beat until they've been dethroned. They're the reigning AL West champs. You cannot take them lightly at all. So you still need to take care of your business and hope they don't take care of theirs. They still have Yordan Alvarez. They still have some weapons there. Isaac Paredes might be a weapon as well. It's just, it's they still have some dudes regardless. So that's going to be it for us talking about our division rivals. I'm not making any proclamations necessarily on who's going to be first, second, and third. However, I do feel like Athletics fourth and Angels fifth probably. So this is going to be my predictions kind of. But that's what's going on with all those teams. Now we're going to move on to end out the 3-part series of this season preview. We're going to be talking about some of the keys to making the postseason this year, because that's ultimately what we want. We want to see playoff baseball in Seattle. It is time. We need to get there. We need to not lose out by a game again. These guys can do it. I believe it. So let's go into the keys here. First off, we're going to talk about health, which I know it's like such a cop-out because health is the key for every single team. So this is not unique to the Mariners. However, I do think the problem with the Mariners is their depth is not great. Outside of who they have on their roster already, their depth behind those players is not fantastic. So health is going to be huge. Now, when we're talking about like the pitching side, the Mariners have been pretty lucky on the rotation side. The starting pitcher injuries last year were minimal. It was really only Brian Wu who had any, big IL stints. Castillo had a little bit here and there as well, but they got really lucky last year. It was very minimal. Will that luck continue this year? Hopefully, but it's like when you live in a world where it feels like every day you're learning about another starting pitcher on a different team that's going down for Tommy John or whatever, you have to feel a little bit of anxiety there. That's for sure. Like you can't just, just assume that they're going to stay healthy all year. So we're gonna have to cross our fingers for that, because outside of the starting five, it's Emerson Hancock, it's Jonathan Diaz, it's maybe Logan Evans, but it's like none of those guys are guys you can slot in for anyone and be like, yes, they are. Certainly not even comparable. It's like, these guys can't be options for long terms potentially. Logan Evans, maybe. We'll see. He has some potential there. But like Emerson Hancock, Jonathan Diaz, rough. They need to pitch minimally for sure. And then with the bullpen, we're going to be getting some guys back, obviously, in Santos and Brash from injury. Troy Taylor's working his way back. Hopefully we can keep, the main guys of our back end healthy, because that would be huge for us. Because last year was really the year where it felt like the injuries were killing us on the bullpen side. So, maybe it'll be, we'll get some luck this year finally on that. And then when we're talking about the offensive players, once again, still a depth issue. Like Cal Raleigh's been beat up a lot the last few years. If he goes down for an extended IL stint, Mitch Garver is now your everyday catcher. Unless he's hitting well, that's going to be rough. You do have Blake Hunt too, who I didn't mention in the offensive season preview, because I do think, it's probably going to be Raleigh and Garver to start, and then Hunt will be kind of like if one of those guys goes down. And he's a solid defender. You can't trust him to be a solid bat. So that's where it's like, if Raleigh goes down, that's going to be a huge problem. And we have guys like Jorge Polanco who, are coming back from surgery. We're coming back from knee surgery, and we don't know how he's going to produce. We don't know if that's going to help him produce better. So yeah, health is huge, and that's the same for every team. So once again, that's not some a huge revelation of a key by any means, but it is ultimately the most important point, and that's how teams succeed, is by having health. And if they don't stay healthy, they have depth. Like look at the Dodgers, for example. Their starting pitching cannot stay healthy at all, but they have so much depth that even if they lose a guy, they have other guys to slot in there. So the Mariners don't have that luxury, unfortunately. So, going to cross our fingers for health. Okay. The next key for me is the offensive pieces being a league average, or having the floor be raised, at least in the offense. So last year, out of 15 Mariners hitters that logged over 100 plate appearances, 7 of them posted an under league average WRC plus. And some of those guys were key guys like JP Crawford, Jorge Polanco. So, I just think if we can raise the floor of this offense a little bit, because, I said it in the offensive side, like it's hard for me to assume that the 2025 offense will be as bad or worse than the 2024 offense, because 2024 offense was quite literally that bad. That if we can raise the floor, that'll be very helpful and huge for this team. And yeah, the more guys closer to league average and above, the better. And yeah. That's a pretty simple key there. Just raise the floor, baby. We don't need to see 2024 all over again, because that was rough to watch for sure. So there's that. And then the last key I'm going to talk about, and this was kind of it's a little bit, I don't want to say controversial, but people have different opinions on this sentiment. I think they need to have a different mindset that every game matters. Every single game, every series, and every single game, getting the W matters. And Dan Wilson mentioned, or at least it's been mentioned, that Dan Wilson has kind of instilled a bit of that mentality this year, that don't take days off, don't take games off. Like every game matters. And the reason this is so important, in my opinion, is that the last 2 seasons we've lost out a postseason spot by 1 game, 2 years in a row. So it's easy when that happens. And then you look at, them losing a series against the Marlins, right? Like if they don't lose that series against the Marlins, which they shouldn't be losing that series, they could be playing postseason baseball. Or, it's just, you look at those series every year, it's winning the series that you should be winning, and sweeping the series you should be sweeping. Now, I think your goal for every series should be to simply win it. I don't think you need to go into a series with the Marlins being like, we have to sweep them or else that's a failure. Or the White Sox, we have to sweep them or else that series is a failure. You need to win the series that you need to win. Against the White Sox, against the Marlins, against just those low-level teams. You have to. Because when you don't, when you lose out by a game at the end of the season, yes, you should be able to look back at that series and be like, you can't say that's where it went wrong, but that's just an example of what happened. Because there's also, on the flip side of that, there are series that I think it's fine to go into that series being like, I just hope we win 1 game of these 3, like against the Dodgers or something. Be like, I just want to not get swept. That's fine for me. But it's just a matter of still going into every game, and just because they're, a low-level team, don't take it easy. Like, you need to win these games. They are important. They end up stacking up at the end of the year. And that's the difference between being 85 wins and missing out by a game like last year. Or you could be an 88 win team. Or you can be an 89 win team and make the playoffs. And hey, if you win 88 or 89 games and you still miss out, then so be it. Like, it sucks. But you need to take care of business when you need to take care of business. And we saw last year specifically, it felt like a lot of times where we did not take care of business when we needed to. So that's the last key in my opinion. So health, we need to raise the floor of this offense, and taking care of business when you need to. Showing that sense of urgency. Show that sense of urgency not when it's late August or September. Show that sense of urgency to win games in April, in May, in June. That is how you are going to be successful, in my opinion, at least. Ultimately, this is my opinion. I'm not a coach, not a major league player. This is my opinion. Okay. I'm just a random guy. So yeah, that's it. Well, but with that said, that's going to be it for my season preview series. This is the last part of it. I appreciate you. If you are listening up until this point, please leave a like. It helps me out a lot if you're on YouTube. You can subscribe as well on YouTube. If you're on the audio only platforms on Spotify or Apple, I appreciate that as well. You can follow the show and you can rate as well. It would help me out a lot. It's all free. And thank you so much for listening to this. The next time you hear from me on Mariners Rundown, it's going to sound different because when the next episode will happen after the regular season has started, the show will actually be more structured with segments. We're going to be going through series recaps and previews, news, stuff like that, and some other segments that I'm still working out to make this a fun show. And it's going to be weekly. Okay. I don't have a specific day of the week it's going to be dropping because I just can't do it. My job isn't just certain days of the week. It's rotational. So I can't commit to a certain day of the week. However, it will still be weekly. And I appreciate you if you follow the show and keep track of that. And yeah, you can look at for me on Twitter as well for any announcements regarding the show at Raise the Trident. But that's going to be it for me in this one. And I will see you in the next.